Hi. Okay, I'm back with you today. This is my second recording. I just recorded like 5 minutes thinking I was recording, but here we go. So this is to address some questions that I got from a friend. She said, we've been focusing a lot on family work for the past couple years because I feel it's important. Amen. Totally 100% important. I think it's more important than probably almost anything else besides spirituality in the home. But how do you get them to want to do it? Is it something you just keep pushing them to do? Yes. Do they ever get to want to do it? Okay, Kel just snorted. Yeah, 17 years old. Yeah, he loves to do work. And my 14-year-old over here, Drew, he loves the bathroom, right, Drew?
Uh-huh.
Okay, he loves the bathroom. Okay, questions. We do a lot of it together because my kids are still learning, but it seems they still struggle with the basics. Get dressed, make your bed, etc. Some days are great, others are not. I want, especially my 11-year-old, to do more. Is it normal for kids to push against doing chores, even though we do them all together all the time? Yeah, it is. I think it's a very natural thing for people to fight against doing work. And really, I mean, you think about what motivates us to do work. Normally people don't find joy in the actual process. They find joy and satisfaction in the end result. I think of it as like exercise. Exercise generally isn't something that people love to learn by deciding, oh, one day, oh, I'm going to go and exercise and I'm going to love it the whole time. Maybe some people do that, but most people don't. So what I like to do with work, when I approach the philosophy of work, first I determine why I want them to work and how much do I want them to learn that why. So for me, I want my children to learn to work because I want them to feel that satisfaction. I want them to feel competent about it. I addressed in my work video earlier my friend who couldn't clean up her own house and the lack of self-worth that she felt at not being able to take care of simple things. So there's that. So what I'd like to do when I'm approaching it, I want them to do that, and I want them also to be able to, okay, so to take care of themselves, and I want them to be able to do every job in the house. So I'll talk to you how I approach that with my structure. So when my oldest, we had just moved into our Kaysville home, my oldest was 12 years old, and we had just moved. And everything was up in the air. And so literally for 3 months, all I did was teach them the basics. Yes, they had other jobs and areas of stewardship, but my focus was on the basics. So every day we did kind of what you did, it sounds like. We would get up and we would do it together. And at that point I think that's when I had 7 kids. And so, anyway, so it was still challenging. But what we did is I came up with these for basics. It was brush teeth, comb hair, say prayer, clean room, make bed, get dressed, and then like brush your teeth. I think I said that already. It's morphed a little bit more now, so you can see over here in our chart. I put up on the other one. Okay, so right now we have say prayer, read scriptures, write in journal, make bed, get dressed, brush hair, brush teeth, clean room, put laundry away, and the older ones do their schedule, and then they have a mom help. I would just start with things that you feel like are really important. I don't know if you feel like journal writing is incredibly important at this stage. I wouldn't worry about it. Also, mom help, that's something you can add later. It's a really awesome thing. It's like, hey mom, what can I do to help? And if I have a little something, like get a diaper or get someone dressed for the day, then they'll do that. But anyway, just kind of the basics. And so what I would do for 3 months is we just focused on that. And they said, you have to have it done by a certain time. So I feel like there needs to be kind of a time limit. Otherwise, they're like doing their basics all day and playing. So I originally was ambitious and thought, oh, 8 o'clock they should be done. And that killed us all. Like I was trying to get them ready for it. And what I would do is by 8 o'clock, if they didn't have it done, there'd be some kind of consequence. I think the one that's been most effective over the years is they get extra jobs. The theory behind that is they get extra work. Well, it is extra work. I mean, if you have someone who's lazy and doesn't do work, it ends up being more work in the long run. So that's my logic behind that. And so I would give them extra jobs, depending on their age. Little ones, I don't so much give them extra jobs. I try to help them more. So if they're under 8, is kind of, I would keep working with them instead of giving them extra jobs. When they're older, over 8, then I give them extra jobs and extra work they have to do. So I did that for 3 months, and then they still had other areas to work, but we kind of just did that throughout the day. And then as they got the basics under control, then what I did is I divided up the house into the different areas of cleaning. So if you can see up here, we have clean upstairs and downstairs bathroom on one of the jobs. Okay, and we have one, make breakfast is one of the jobs, and one of the jobs is doing laundry. There should be upstairs in the closet in the far end, or the closet by the diapers. We have make breakfast is one of the jobs. And then we have clean up breakfast as a job, and then we also have do lunch. And we've morphed to the point where people can do their own laundry. Laundry is just for little kids. So, basically what I like to do is, so I divide up the whole house into areas. When I was at my other house, we had living areas, we had breakfast cleanup, lunch make and cleanup, breakfast make, bathrooms, and living areas. I think I said living areas, and then outdoors. And so they would rotate through those. Now I like to do it on 1 week rotations, because to me that's easier. That way they get a chance to kind of get the idea of what's involved in a job, but then they also don't get bored with it because they're doing it for a long time. So they were in rotation. Everyone would switch. Each week they switched to a different job. As they got older, the idea was if they could pass off an area, so this is kind of an incentive thing, if they could pass off an area, which means they could clean it as well as I clean it, or according to certain standards, then they would be able to check that off their list. And once they get all of them checked off, then they get to just pick an area that's their area of stewardship. And at that point, they're just responsible for that. Another thing that we have hand in hand with that is we have, like we have the kids here working back. Woohoo! Dinner table looks great now. We have, what was I going to say? Oh, we have allowance. So my reasoning behind allowance is I like my kids to be able to have their own money to be responsible for. We do $25 a month for the older ones once they have their areas of stewardship. Once they're over 12, they're responsible for all their outside expenses. So clothes, shoes, socks. So as you know, $25 doesn't really go very far. So you have to kind of save up for that to do that. Before they hit 12, I have a certain savings plan based on Janine Boland's Money Wise program, I don't know, where they do 10% towards religious obligations, 10% towards a charitable institution, 10% towards long-term savings, and 10% towards short-term savings. They have little envelopes. So I do it once a month, and they just divide them up into their folders, their little envelopes, and they never let me forget. It's awesome. And so then they get their money, and they get their spending money after that. So up until 12, I kind of teach them how to save and how to do it on their own. And then I encourage them to do it after they're 12 on their own. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they keep doing it. But at least they have some money saved up and they've seen how it works. These are just kind of a grouping of ideas I've had from people over the years on how to do this. So it's all kind of tied together. That idea of stewardship, that they can take care of an area in a home for me, so I don't have to worry about it. And to me, that's worth giving them $25 a month. It's kind of like paying a maid, in a sense, but it's not really. I mean, that way they get the money they need to cover expenses. They're working for it, but they're also taking care of the home. Realistically, $25 a month isn't a lot of money, but it's what we could do. In Hungary, it was less, and they had to suffer through that that deflation of funds there, but they did a good job. So going back to work, the work concept, as far as 11-year-olds, you'll find that their ability to work mirrors what phase they're in. When they're in core phase, they like to work, but they don't have a lot of skills to do it. They get to love of learning, they don't love working, and so there's a lot of learning process. I've had kids, so our jobs, they're responsibly done with their jobs and zones. Once they finished learning about how to do their basics, then I also included they had to have their zones done before 9 o'clock. And I've tried different times, 9:30, 8:38, and 9 o'clock works for our family. So experiment with it and see, what time frame works for your family. Then what I do is I'll go through and I'll just, I guess 9:30 is when we do it now. But I'll just check and see if they're done on their list. And if it's not done, then I just post up an extra job on there for them. And seems to work. I've had some days where kids have literally spent all day just sitting there complaining that they have an extra job. Or they've been weeping in the kitchen because they don't want to do the dishes. It's not been an easy process over the years, but I've been consistent. I haven't been the nicest all the time. I've given some pretty huge extra jobs, and they've not been happy with it, and I've given in at times because I feel bad for them. Anyway, so it's a process, and it's not a perfect process, but I think my kids understand, and they've seen in their lives the benefit of being able to work hard. And the blessing is in our house, and they can go to a place and they can clean up and they know how to take care of things. And they also can feel the sense of accomplishment with having the house clean. We can get the whole house clean really quickly in the morning if my older kids are helping. So that's kind of how we've done jobs over the years. I hope that answers your questions. It's not easy. Decide if it's worth fighting for, if it's worth teaching them. A lot of times if, like my 10-year-old or 11-year-old or even sometimes 13-year-old, if they still haven't got their zone or their stewardships yet, then I'll work with them sometimes, just if it seems like they're having a hard time with it. If I end up doing a lot of work with them, then I say, well, it's going to reflect on your allowance. If I'm doing a lot of your work, you're not going to get as much allowance. And so I try to keep track of that so it's not just an arbitrary thing. I try to mark on the calendar if I've needed more to help them more that day or something. So at the end of the month when I review the allowance needs, I can kind of scale it back a little bit. You just have different kids at different stages and different personalities. My 9-year-old is so gung-ho. She's still learning how to do details and making it cleaned well, but she's so enthusiastic. I think she'll have her stewardships done probably the same time my 11-year-old son does. He's very meticulous, very methodical. He'll do an excellent job. He just tends to take a little more time with it, and that can overwhelm him, and so he has a harder time with that. So just play with it. Decide what's worth it to you, what areas you want to have cleaned in your home with your kids. I have a lot of kids, and so they do a lot of the work, and it works really well. Just decide how much you want to have them involved with it and how much you need to take on yourself. And remember that work is one of the most important lessons they could learn. So it's great. Just keep practicing and be dedicated and diligent over the years, and it'll work out. So thanks. Talk to you later.